fifth chapter, quality. Okay, so the chapter name is quality. So we will study the chapter in detail. I will read and explain the paragraphs, and then I will send you the question answers. Okay, so let me just give you a brief description about our story. So this story, quality, is about the narrator. Okay, the narrator of our story. Who is the narrator? Who narrates a story. Author is a book writer. Okay, author is someone who writes a book, but narrator means someone is narrating his own experiences. Okay, he's telling about his own experiences. Okay, so this story is about our narrator. First of all, the narrator and a certain Mr. Gessler. Okay, Mr. Gessler, who is a German native. Okay, he is a German man living in London. You all know where is London. Okay, in United Kingdom, UK. Okay, London is the capital of Britain, UK. And Mr. Gessler is working there. He has a shop. Okay, Mr. Gessler, has a shop. He is the owner of a shop which makes shoes. Okay, so he is a shoemaker. Mr. Gessler is a renowned shoemaker in London, and he is from Germany. So he is a German native, and Mr. Gessler is a very skilled shoemaker. Okay, so our narrator goes to his shop. The shop's name I will discuss in the story. That is a very important part of your story. So our story basically is about the narrator and Mr. Gessler, who is a shoemaker who has a shop which sells shoe. He makes shoe. Okay, so we often have the ready-made shoes, okay, of big brands, but here Mr. Gessler is making shoes in his own shop. Okay, so nowadays it is not very common that we get things made by people themselves, but we get things ready-made and which are of a big brand. Okay, but in the earlier days, what we used to have, we had the shoemakers, the tailors. Nowadays we go to tailors just for some stitching and other stuff. So earlier the tailors were very prominent. Ready-made clothes were very few, had a very little impact. Now we have very less these workers who make their own craft. Okay, so Mr. Gessler is one such shoemaker who makes very nice shoes, and we will see the story that how Mr. Gessler is very good and what happens with Mr. Gessler and our narrator. So without wasting much time, let's start our story. Today we are going to study the chapter quality, and I have already introduced you with the chapter. So let's start reading and explanation of your chapter 5th, that is quality. Okay, so this story is a very interesting story of a shoemaker. Okay, you all are aware with a shoemaker, those who make shoes. Okay, and here the shoemaker is a very skilled person, and he has an art of making shoes. So his name is Mr. Gessler, and he is a German shoemaker. Okay, he is settled in London. So he is a native of Germany, and he is residing in London in United Kingdom. Okay, he is a perfect artist, and we will see that what happens with him in the story. Quality. I knew him from the days of my extreme youth. Okay, so the writer is saying that I knew Mr. Gessler from the days of my extreme youth because he made my father's boots. Okay, so The writer was very young when he used to visit the shoemaker's shop with his father, and the shoemaker used to make boots for his father. He lived with his elder brother in his shop, which was in a small by street in a fashionable part of London. Fashionable here means a very posh area, a very developed area where a lot of buildings were there, a lot of construction was there, development was there. Okay, so he used to have a shop in a small street of a fashionable part of London. The writer used to visit him with his father. The shop had a certain quite distinction. Okay, there was a different thing about the shop. It was a very unique shop. There was no sign upon it. Okay, there was no board written about the shop, that which shop it is, who is the owner, other than the name of Gessler Brothers. So only one board was there, and in it was written Gessler Brothers. Like you have a lot of shops in your locality in Haldwani, like Puran and Sons. A lot of shops are there where the owner's surname is written, and here also the Gessler Brothers was written, and in the window of a few pairs of boots. So in the window, like you must have seen outside from the shop, that behind the glass, the things which are there in the shop to buy, they are kept as a showpiece. So same way, boots were kept inside the shop, which were visible from the window. He made only what was ordered, so he used to make the boots which were pre-ordered, and what he made never failed to fit. So his boots never used to fail while wearing them. It was so nice that whenever the owner used to wear them, it used to fit very perfectly. To make boots, such boots as he made, seemed to me then, and still seems to me, mysterious and wonderful. So our writer, who was a young kid when he started going to the shop with his father, said that at that time also, and now today also, I feel that no one can match the craft of Mr. Gessler. He makes so nice boots that it can't be compared by anyone else. It was so mysterious, it was so wonderful. He used to be amazed that some mystery is behind the shoemaking. I remembered well my shy remarks one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Glessler? So the boy is saying that when I was young, I was there that Mr. Gessler can make a boot for me. So I made a very shy remark that, isn't it so hard to make a boot, Mr. Gessler? And his answer, given with a sudden smile from out of the redness of his beard. So Mr. Gessler had the red beard, the brownish beard, and he said, it is an ard. Okay, you see that Mr. Gessler's accent, he's saying it as id and art as ard. So he has a very heavy accent of German that German people have. Id is an art. Okay, he said that it was not possible to go to him very often. His boots lasted terribly. Okay, so uh, the people who used to buy boots from him used to visit very rarely because the boots used to last very long, having something beyond the temporary. Okay, having something beyond temporary means the boots were not very common, they were unique, that they never were destroyed, they were never loose. So the people used to visit very rarely to Mr. Gessler's shop, Gessler Brothers. Okay, you can see the board here in the picture, you can see Gessler Brothers written over there. Okay, some essence of boot stitched into them. One went in not as into most shops, but restfully as one enters a church, and sitting in the single wooden chair waited a guttural sound. Here guttural means harsh and grating. Okay, very harsh sound. So one used to go like he is visiting a church. You can understand by the example of temple. Whenever you visit a temple, you are so quiet, you are so calm, you are not very noisy. So same way people used to visit the shop, and they used to wait in the wooden chair. A guttural sound and the tip tap of his slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs. So a noisy, a screechy sound used to come, and he would stand before one without coat, a little bent in leather apron. So he used to wear a leather coat and a apron. You have seen an apron. Uh, Apron is wore by the chefs, or while you are cooking you wear the apron, and here Mr. Gessler also wears an apron while mending the boots. Okay, so it was a leather apron made of leather. Okay, sleeves turned back, so he used to fold his sleeves back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots. So he used to blink a lot, he used to blink his eyes a lot, like he must have been in a dream. And I was say, how do you do, Mr. Gessler? How are you, Mr. Gessler? Could you make up me a pair of Russian leather boots? Can you make me a pair of leather boots? Without a word, he would leave me retiring whence he came, or into the other portion or the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair. So he used to leave the boy. He used to hear his demand that the boy wants a leather boot, and he used to went away from the position, and the boy used to rest in the wooden chair. Soon he would come back holding in his hand a piece of gold brown leather. So, whenever he was back with a pair of good quality boots. The quality word is very prominent here. It is the name of our chapter. Quality signifies that the boots were of great quality. Okay. With eyes fixed on it, he would remark, "What a beautiful piece!" Here, see the accent again. Piece is written as bees, and beautiful as beautiful. Okay. When I too had admired it, he would speak again. When the boy also admired the boot and used to praise about the craft of Gessler, the owner of the shop used to start speaking again. "When do you want them?" And I would answer, "Oh, as soon as you conveniently can." And he would say, "Tomorrow fortnight." Or if he were his elder brother, "I will ask my brother." Okay, so he used to say that I will ask my brother about it. Here, brother is also written differently. So, to signify the accent that is used by Gessler. Then I would murmur, "Thank you, God, thank you, good morning, Mr. Gessler." "Good morning," he would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand, and as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his slippers going up to the stairs. So he used to wear the slippers and he used to go back to his work, to his dream of boots. Okay, here one word is there, incense. That means smell of a leather is compared to the smell of incense. Incense sticks you must have heard. We call in Hindi dhoop. Okay, the dhoop sticks. So the leather used to smell like a incense stick. It used to smell very holy. I cannot forget that day on which I had occasion to say him, "Mr. Gessler, that last pair of boots creaked, you know." So the boy cannot forget the day when he had a complaint about the boots, and he complained to Mr. Gessler that the last pair were not very good. It creaked, it made a creaked sound. He looked at me for time without replying, as if expecting me to withdraw or qualify the statement, then said, "It shouldn't have creaked." So here see, it is written as id and creaked is written as creaked. So again the accent of Mr. Gessler is shown here. "It did, I am afraid. You got them wet before they found themselves." So here Mr. Gessler is saying that you got them wet before they found themselves. So he's saying that maybe your shoes were wet, that's why they were making the sound. I don't think so. At the At that he lowered his eyes as if hunting for memory of those boots, and I felt sorry. I had mentioned this grave thing. Send them back, he said. I will look at them. So the boy now was feeling guilty that why he had complained about the boots, because Mr. Gessler was very passionate about his boot making. Okay. So he said that send them back, he said. I will look at them. Some boots, he continued slowly, are bred from bird. Bird here means birth. If I can do nothing with them, I take them off your bill. Okay, so Mr. Gessler said that if the boots can't be mended by me, then I will pay you your money back. Once I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firm. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior covering of my foot. At last he said, "Those are not my boots." So one day the boy visited him uh, in a pair of boots that were bought in emergency. So the boots that were not from the Gesslers. So the man looked at the boots. Mr. Gessler looked at the boots and he recognized that these are not from his shop. So he said that those are not my boots. The tone was not of anger, nor of sorrow, not even of contempt, but there was in it something quite that froze the blood. So he was not angry that he was not wearing the boots made by Gessler, or he was not even feeling sad, but there was something very unique in his tone that made the boy freeze to his blood. He was very scared, in a very scared state of mind. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot was not quite comfortable. It hurts you there. It hurts you there is written here. It means it hurts you there, he said. Does those big uh, firms have no self-respect? So he said, Mr. Gessler said that the big firms, you can name a few big boot makers like Bata is there, or Red Chief is there, Red Tape is there. Okay, so Mr. Gessler was a native shoemaker. He was a local, and the big companies were there. He was making a point that these big companies of shoes, they never worry about the customers and they have no self respect. And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. With bitterness he spoke that it was the only time I ever heard him discuss the conditions and hardships of his trade. See, the people who do these kind of things like making boots, or the tailors, they don't get enough praise or enough work, because we often go to the big brands. Okay, would you rather prefer a very nice shirt from a big company like maybe it can be US Polo or whatever it is, Wrangler or any company, or you will prefer a shirt made by from a local tailor? So you will prefer the branded one. So same way Gessler was complaining that these firms, they make no good materials, they are not very service friendly, yet we are not given much work. I make the boots myself. The boots are of very great quality, but still people go to branded companies. They get it all, he said. They get it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us who love our boots. It comes to this presently. Here the accent is again used. It comes to this presently. I have no work. Every year it get less. So Mr. Gessler is saying that it happens every year that I get less and less work. The big brands, they have big advertisement. You must have seen that Pepsi, it is very famous brand, and it comes on TV as well. But a local sharbat, you can say, some woman is making sharbat at home. She is sending it to the market. She is selling it into the market,
It has a good sale, people buy it, but it is not much popular. We always praise Pepsi. We are after Pepsi, but we never buy from the local vendors. So same condition was with Mr. Kessler. As best as I could, I explained the circumstances of those ill-omened boots. Okay, and but his face and voice made so deep an impression that during the next few minutes I ordered many pairs. They lasted longer than ever, and I was not able to go to him for nearly 2 years. So the boy felt very pity on Mr. Gessler, and he bought several boots which lasted him for several years. He even said bad things about the brands, big brands, and but it didn't make any change into the mood of Mr. Gessler. He was very upset because of the situation. It was many months before my next visit to his shop. This time it appeared to be his elder brother handling a piece of leather. So Mr. Gessler visited the shop. Sorry, I am saying Mr. Gessler. The boy who is now growing up to a man, he visited Mr. Gessler's shop and he saw that Mr. Gessler was not there, and one man was there who was Mr. Gessler's elder brother. Well, Mr. Gessler, I said, how are you? He came closer and peered at me. I am uh, pretty well, he said slowly, but my elder brother is dead. Okay, so what happened when our narrator visited the shop many years later? He confronted Mr. Gessler himself, but before going to his shop, he visited once the nearby the shop and he saw that Mr. Gessler's elder brother was there. But now when he visited after so many years, he saw that only Mr. Gessler was there. Okay, and Mr. Gessler said that I am I am pretty well, but my elder brother is dead. And I saw that it was indeed himself, but how aged and worn, and never before had I heard him mention his brother. Much shocked, I murmured, "Oh, I am sorry." So Mr. Gessler was alone now. Earlier, he used to have his elder brother with him, who used to work with him. And Mr. Gessler never used to mention his elder brother, but now he mentioned that my brother is dead. I am well, but my brother is no more. Yes, he answered, he was a good man. He made a good boot, but he is dead. And he touched the top of his hand, where the hair had suddenly gone as thin as it had been on that of his poor brother, to indicate, I suppose, the cause of his death. Do you want any boots? And he held up leather in his head. It is a beautiful piece. So Mr. Gessler touched his head. He showed that he is also growing old, and he somehow told the reason of his brother's death, that he also grew old and he died. So he asked him the same thing that Mr. Gessler, the elder brother, used to ask, that do you want a boot? It is a beautiful piece. I ordered several pairs, but it was very long before they came. But they were better than ever. One simply could not wear them out, and soon after that I went abroad. So Mr. Gessler sold him some boots, and they were very nice. And after some time, he went abroad. The boy who was visiting the shop, our narrator, who is now grown up, he went abroad. He went foreign. And it was over a year before I was again in London, and the first shop I went to was my old friend's. I had left a man of 60, I came back to one of 75. So our narrator is back now in London, and he visited Mr. Gessler, who was now 75, and at that time he was 60 when he left the country. So 15 years have passed. I came back to one of 75, pinched and worn, who genuinely this time did not at first know me. So Mr. Gessler, who used to recognize the boy every time, was now having a was struggling very much to recognize the boy. Do you want any boots? He said. I can make them quickly. It is a black dime. Okay, so he said, do you want any boots? I can make them very quickly. I answered, please, please, I want boots all round, every kind. Given those boots up when one evening they came. One by one I tried them on. In shape and fit, in finish and quality of leather, they were the best he had ever made. So again, Mr. Gessler provided the best boots. The boy flew downstairs, wrote a check, and posted it at once with his own hand. So he wrote a check for Mr. Gessler and he sent him the money himself. A week later, passing the little street, I thought I would go in and tell him how splendidly new boots fitted, but when I came to where his shop had been, his name was gone. You see, only one board was there in Mr. Gessler's shop, Gessler's brother, and now it was gone. The name was gone. I went in very much disturbed. In the shop there was a young man with an English face. Mr. Gessler in? I said. No, sir, he said. No, but we can attend to anything with pleasure. We have taken the shop over. Yes, yes, I said, but Mr. Gessler? Oh, he answered, dead. Dead? But I only received these boots from him last Wednesday week. So the boy was very sad and shocked to see that Mr. Gessler, whom he visited only the last week, was now dead, and his shop was now owned by an Englishman. As you know that Mr. Gessler was German and he was working in London, but now the owner was a different one and Mr. Gessler was dead. Ah, he said, poor old man starved himself. Slow starvation, the doctor called it. You see, he went to work in such a way, would keep the shop on, wouldn't have a soul touch his boots except himself. When he got an order, it took him such a time. People won't wait. He lost everybody, and there he would sit, going on and on. I will say that for him, not a man in London made a better boot. But look at the competition. He never advertised, would have the best leather too, and do it all himself. Well, there it is. What could you expect with his ideas? Okay, so the man who was now the owner of the shop said to the narrator that now Mr. Gessler is dead because he was working very hard. He was working alone and he was very old, and the competition is so much that he used to work very hard to be in the race, and he never advertised his boots, so he never get any fame, and now he's dead, but he was the best boot maker in the entire region. That may be a bit flowery, as the saying is, but I know myself he was sitting over his boots day and night to the very last. You see, I used to watch him, never gave himself time to eat, never had a penny in the house, all in went rent and leather. How he lived so long I don't know. He regularly let his fire go out. He was a character, but he made good boots. Yes, I said he made good boots. So the boy said that Mr. Gessler was very hard worker, and he never used to eat much. He used to spend all his money in making boots, in buying leather, and so he couldn't save anything for himself, and he died. But I can say it that he made good boots. Okay, so it shows you the thing that what the market is like, what the society has become like. We always go after brands, we always go after expensive materials, but we never buy something from the street vendors. They are very poor people and they work very hard, so we must all buy at least something from the vendors. Now when Diwali will come, we all will have the lights that are very bright, and we will buy the Chinese malas, but we don't always buy from the diya makers. Okay, the people who sell the clay pots or such things which is very beautiful, but we consider it very cheap. We always go after things which looks very glossy and very expensive, but we never buy things from these poor people, and because of which they are still living a very miserable life. So same way in our story, Mr. Gessler was there, who never advertised his craft, but he was the best boot maker. So this was the story quality. I hope you have understood the chapter.
So here our story concludes, here our chapter concludes. I hope you have understood what the story is about, and it is a very nice story, a very interesting story. So I think it is clear to you what is the moral that we get from the story, that we must buy some things from the local vendors. Okay, so I hope that you will do the same in Diwali. You will buy some diyas, you will get something made from the local vendors, okay, rather than going from one shop to other which sells the huge branded things. We will buy something from these local people also. Okay, so this was our story quality. You will do the question answers and word meanings in your fair notebook, and we will meet again with the next video that will be of the poem. Okay, so till that time, keep on watching the videos, subscribe to the channel and complete all your work. So you are watching video classes. I am Aman. Thank you so much for watching the lecture.